We kick off this week's episode by bringing up DMC Devil May Cry again, but don't panic, don't worry, it's not another episode about DMC Devil May Cry. We're just using that as a launching pad for another topic, for a bigger issue. Okay, so just enjoy it, it's going to be a fun ride, and do watch to the end before you decide to comment, because that's always helpful. Thank you. There was a minor kerfuffle recently regarding DMC Devil May Cry removing a line of dialogue from the definitive edition. The line involved the character of Lilith telling antagonist Mundus that the world would be his bitch, and there's nothing left for him to do but, and I quote, grab it by the hair, bend it over, and fur, which is where it cuts off. As of the definitive edition, she stops after calling the world a bitch. Ninja Theory said it didn't like the line and made the cut to stop the intro dragging on too long. Naturally, some gamers were furious over this, with one in particular suggesting to me that the game can't call itself a definitive edition anymore, losing what I'm sure we all thought was a crucially important line. That last bit was sarcasm, by the by. Some were quick to cry censorship, blame those no good SJWs, etc., even though there's far more sexually suggestive and explicit stuff left in the game. There was a misunderstanding of the word definitive as well, which does not mean preserved in all intact glory, it means the version of a thing that defines the experience. Now that can apply to content cut to make it flow better or remove awkwardness and things that don't work. It certainly wasn't censorship, because Ninja Theory was not ordered to make the change against its will. It chose to remove a line it likely found cringeworthy, because it was, for the sake of the production. What it did was something that's common to all entertainment, but sometimes gets mistaken for censorship. What it did was editing. Another sector of the nerd world recently had a huge shitstorm over this case of mistaken identity. A variant cover for Batgirl was unveiled as part of DC Comics' Joker Month, harking back to the infamous Killing Joke story. Here, Batgirl is held against her will, Joker's smile painted on her face while she looks terrified in the mirror and the Joker leers. For what it's worth, I thought it was an effectively creepy picture personally, but I also fully understand why some would take umbrage with it. Many argue that Joker would have done the same to Batman, but at the same time, would Batman have looked that terrified and helpless and scared, especially on his own cover? At any rate, the staff working on Batgirl agreed and made the decision not to run the cover. Again, the furious aspects of geekdom everywhere cried censorship, blamed pressure, and ignored the statements from the creative staff themselves. They called DC a wussy company caving to political correctness. It needs to be stressed, however, that the artist who worked on that picture, Raphael Albuquerque himself, requested that it be changed. He also says he was under no pressure to do so, explaining how he realised it made no sense to run the cover with the current direction Batgirl is in. So what we have are creative individuals who decided to change a creative thing in order to better suit their creative needs. Creative expression has not been stifled here. This is creative expression working as it should work. Free expression does not exclusively apply to the production of content. It can apply to the removal of content too, if the creator chooses to do so for the sake of its creation. Even I've been hit by this failure to distinguish. A while ago, the Jimquisition's own spin-off podcast, Podquisition, came under fire from some of the more dedicated fans when they found out we edit the show. We cut out technical issues, pauses, and the odd joke or comment that goes nowhere, comes off wrong, or is generally awkward for some reason, usually at the request of whichever one of us fucked up, usually Gavin. This has led to a show I feel runs better and more fluidly than any other podcast I've worked on, but the revelation that we sometimes cut literally seconds of material made some folks furious, who felt it was a betrayal of everything my podcasts have ever stood for, that I'd censor myself. The notion of cut lines became a holy grail, as some fans begged me for an uncut version, a version full of fuck-ups and Gavin doing something to derail the recording like he always does, the Ubisoft-loving fool. It may horrify some of you to learn that this show you're watching now is edited, that there may be parts I recorded that didn't work when I listened to them, that the drafted script for this bit may see rewrites, that the live-action intros and outros may have several takes as I start ad-libbing bollocks that goes nowhere. Most entertainment is edited, which means things get cut for a variety of reasons, and only very rarely is that actually censorship. And on the flip side, just as I respect an artist cutting its work, I respect those who refuse to cut it, even in the face of objection. Hotline Miami 2 became infamous before release due to a sexual assault portrayed in the intro as part of an in-universe horror movie. Many found the scene unnecessary, and the game itself is banned in Australia thanks to that and the general tone of the game. Nevertheless, guns were stuck to and Denison Games kept the scene, clearly believing it crucial to the art they wanted to produce. and regardless of my feelings of the scene, I can respect that they chose to leave it in. Interestingly, a lot of the current crowd damning the concept of edited material were on BioWare's balls a few years ago petitioning for Mass Effect 3's ending to be changed, and I said this back when the controversy was fresh. If BioWare doesn't have the artistic conviction to stand behind the ending's original form, then them changing them is no big whoop to me. They made the call to change something in a bid to make it better. Creative expression works again. Now, this is not to say we have to like the changes made, or indeed that all editing makes art better. Taste is, of course, subjective, and while I think every artist has the right to go back and change their work, most of us would agree that George Lucas should have stopped doing it to Star Wars about 15,000 edits ago. And you know, I despise the new voice cast Konami put in the Silent Hill 2 remaster, among other things that made that remaster total shit. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real! Edits to material aren't automatically good by virtue of what they are. It's good that we have the right to do it, but we do of course have to be prepared for the fact that not everybody will enjoy the changes we make. The internet fetishizes free speech, but in doing so often misunderstands what it is. Now, censorship is disgusting. I've had 3 developers to date censor my material by abusing YouTube's copyright system, and I've had publishers like Konami try to pressure me into going back on things I've said, and it blows when third parties seek to stitch your mouth shut. However, I've also reserved and exercised my right to alter the shit I make based not just on audience feedback but my own instinct, and that's something anybody producing any kind of content does. Snipping material for time and pacing, removing scenes that never quite worked, re-releasing altered versions of movies and games with an intent to improve them, this is something that's gone back decades, and for a damn good reason. Editing is a crucial part of making shit better. Now, it doesn't always work that way, hand shot first, but that's the intention, and it does for the most part work. And even when it doesn't work, it's still creative expression, as artists do what artists always do: express themselves creatively, even if that expression looks to some like censorship. But far be it from me to stop you if a line about bending the world over and fucking it like a bitch is the hill you want to die on. You do you. Now, I may be the perfect life form, but even I can attribute a large part of my video work's success by my willingness to listen to audience feedback and make changes based on responses. Here's a minor case in point. The other day, someone requested that in my gameplay videos, I no longer put in the description whether or not I liked the game, because they like to be surprised in the content and find out if the game is good or not. And yeah, that's a good idea, so I'm probably going to do it. Now, is that censorship? No, obviously not. Most reasonable people would say no. But it is censorship by the definition being put forth. Someone in the audience requested I don't do anything anymore, and I'm probably not going to do that thing anymore. Or is it only censorship when it's people who aren't you and who don't think like you getting what they want for once instead of you, which does seem to be the large majority of it. So do think about that, and all that remains is thank. I want to watch the Rugrats spin-off all grown up, you can't owl for me.